Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 416. Folks, we got an absolute load of BS to discuss tonight. And that is the fact that the compensation fund had to suspend all payouts due to the fact that they don't know if they will have future funding to meet all required payouts. Now, how in the world does a $634 million estate run into a situation where after only paying out $50 million to the survivors who were abused by Epstein, this estate finds themselves, after only paying out $50 million to these girls, in a position where they have to suspend the rest of the payouts and the compensation fund? How in the world is that even possible? And why in the world would the federal government swoop in like some mafia don collecting their points off the top end and take nearly $200 million? It is absurd, it is obscene, and whoever is responsible for that is an absolute jackass. The federal government should have gotten paid last. What's another $200 million to this wasteful-ass, ridiculous government? It's absurd, folks, that this compensation fund needs to be suspended at this point. Now, does that open up for these survivors if they decide to say, you know what, this compensation fund has proven not to be worthwhile. I have not been compensated. I have not been compensated fairly. So I'm not going to go through this compensation fund anymore, and I am just going to sue all of these people individually, every last person that was involved with Epstein, including the estate, because that's certainly a route that they can go. And I'll tell you what, I would be absolutely livid if I was one of these survivors at this point. All this hubbub about this compensation fund, Jeffrey Epstein has all this money, paid $190 million by Leon Black, blah, 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 blah. And now we're talking about the fund is being suspended for lack of financial resources? Something is amiss. None of this sounds correct. And I really, truly believe that the court should have stepped in a long time ago and removed Indike and Khan, because what's their involvement here? How much of this money has been siphoned off? Now, I don't have any direct evidence of that, right? But I don't put anything past these people. I am very worried about people like Indike and Khan, to say the least, okay? And the fact that they're in charge of this estate and the finances has always left a bad taste in my mouth. The compensation fund sounded like a great idea in concept, right? Sounded like that the fund would be in charge of what's going on. But once again, it looks like the old 1-2 has been pulled on people, and Indike and Khan and the estate were really the ones pulling the strings once again. So let's jump into this article from ABC News by author James Hill and see what he has to say about the current situation. Headline: Jeffrey Epstein Survivors Fund to suspend compensation offers. An independent claims program for alleged survivors of the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein has suspended compensation offers to those individuals due to uncertainty about future funding of the program. Now, I don't even understand how that could possibly be close to the case. With all of this money that Epstein had, they should have already had a yard sale, liquidated all of this shit. What have they been waiting for? Now we know that Glazer has purchased the Palm Beach property, and that's 17 or 18 million going into the kitty. They should be working overtime to sell off the rest of these properties. I don't know what's taking so long. And I guess you could say the market, because of the coronavirus, has just been a tough sell. But if the properties need to get a substantial haircut, then so be it. This kitty needs to be filled, or at the very least, they need to liquidate these properties so that they have the money to pay out when they get sued individually, because I have no doubt that with over 100 people making claims, if people have been left out of this compensation fund, that they're going to be pursuing other legal remedies to make sure that they are made whole by the Epstein estate and the co-conspirators, one way or the other. Although I sincerely regret having to take this action, I have concluded that it is necessary to protect the interests of eligible claimants who have not yet resolved their claims through the program, said Jordana H. Feldman, a New York attorney who administers the Epstein Survivors Compensation Program, which began operating last June. So, according to Jordana Feldman, there's just not enough money for them to continue to fund this program, so it has to be suspended, or else they can't guarantee that they can live up to the obligations made to these survivors. I mean, think about it. How many times are these gals going to get the short end of the stick by the federal government, the system itself, and just all of the elites? Because it seems like every time you turn around, every time an inch is gained, 3 inches are lost. So I wonder how this could even be the case. How could it be possible that all of Jeffrey Epstein's finances have been exhausted already? The Epstein estate, which was initially valued at over $630 million, has already paid out more than $50 million to alleged survivors through the program, but has apparently run into liquidity problems and has been unable to replenish the account designated to pay claims from alleged survivors. Since the program began operating last year, more than 150 people have submitted claims far exceeding initial expectations. So the problem is, it's not that the funds aren't there, it's that they don't have the liquidity to cover this right now. So what that means is they need to go on a spree and sell off all of Epstein's property, all of whatever stocks are left, whatever investments are left, all of it needs to be liquidated. And they need to do it in a manner that might even resemble an auction. Whatever it takes to replenish the funds, the liquidity here, the cash on hand. Because it is just unacceptable, in my opinion, that this fund could dry up in the middle of them compensating these survivors. I don't know how that could sit right with anyone. And if I was the judge in this case, forget it. I'd be going batshit. I'd be holding people accountable, starting with Indike and Khan. Issuing a compensation offer that cannot be timely and fully funded and paid, consistent with the way the program has operated to date, would compromise claimants' interests and the guiding principles of the program, according to a statement from Feldman on Thursday. So she is saying there basically that going forward with payouts that are not underwritten and guaranteed is something that would put in jeopardy the rights of these survivors, and their interests would be disregarded. So I'm thinking if we read between the lines there, what Feldman is saying is that the compensation program being paused is just one way, a safeguard, I guess you would say, to protect their rights going forward. That's kind of what it looks like to me, what she's trying to get at here. Maybe that they can pursue other lawsuits, considering the compensation fund has dried up. And if that's all that is left to them, then hey, you know what? I'm sure that their lawyers are ready to go. As the compensation program was being designed after Epstein's death in August 2019, the Attorney General of the U.S. Virgin Islands, Denise George, received assurances from the estate that there were sufficient assets to fully fund the program and that there was no upper limit on the amount it could set aside to pay claims. Epstein maintained his primary residence since 2010 on a private island off the coast of St. Thomas. So again, that is Indike and Khan. They made these promises. They guaranteed that this could be fully funded. Why is it not fully funded now? Why have we gotten to a point where there is no money to be drawn on for these gals to be made whole? It is unacceptable, and somebody needs to pay the piper. And folks, from where I'm sitting, Indike and Khan should be removed immediately as executors of this estate through whichever legal measures are available. And there should be a full audit of everything that's going on. And if that means that the government has to take over and bring in people to liquidate these properties or whatever, then so be it. Because this is absolutely ridiculous that these two jackanapes have been at the control stick from the jump here. Following the announcement of the suspension of the compensation offers, George filed an emergency motion in the U.S. Virgin Islands probate court seeking an immediate freeze on all assets of the estate, including its cash on hand. George contended that the failure to provide promised compensation for Epstein survivors is one entirely of the estate's and its co-executors' making. Bang, spot on, Denise George. And here we were, the Virgin Islands was going to swoop in and take a cut. Meanwhile, the predator lurking in the bushes was the federal government of the United States like usual, with their hand out and salivating. And Denise George is down here trying to do the right thing, it seems. Trying to do what she can do to stop things in its tracks. So now she has, she's seeking this immediate freeze on all assets of the estate. And I hope that means every last dollar. I don't want 1 cent being paid out to a gardener, to a cook, to a laundry maid. All money frozen right now. And I think that it would be the time to unleash whatever criminal charges might be sitting around for Indike and Khan. These two dudes have to be held responsible. At the very least, they have to hold their own under oath, because questions must be asked and answers must be given. If the co-executors had properly managed the estate's assets and its expenditures, or even promptly communicated any liquidity issues, the estate's assets and obligations could have been managed in a way that would have avoided this default at the expense of Epstein survivors, the court filing states. And that's what the real sickening aspect of all of this is. Once again, these girls get victimized. How many times is this going to occur? How many times is the federal government going to allow it to occur? The program's protocol requires the estate to pay all eligible claims based solely on the administrator's determination and to supplement the available money for compensation from other funds in the estate when the account falls below a certain threshold. So that means you better liquidate the estate to make sure this compensation fund is made whole. That was the whole idea, and that's the whole premise for this fortune. What are you squirreling away for yourselves there, Indike and Khan? What are you putting down on the side for yourselves? You guys stashing something overseas? Offshore? And look, I don't have any direct evidence of that, but those are questions that need to be asked, in my opinion. We're not dealing with honorable people here, folks. Earlier this week, the estate informed Feldman that it did not have sufficient liquidity to fully satisfy the most recent request for replenishment, and that it could not predict when additional liquidity would be secured, according to a statement from Feldman. Well, let's get Zorro Ranch sold. Let's get the townhouse sold. Chop that shit in half and sell it on off. Because guess what? There should never, ever be a situation where compensation is unavailable to those who have been as wronged as these girls were by Epstein and his co-conspirators. Feldman told ABC News on Thursday that she was making the decision to suspend offers because the people submitting claims deserve transparency. Well, I can agree with Miss Feldman there. They most certainly do. But you know what else they deserve? Compensation. And they deserve that compensation being distributed fairly. And that is certainly not what we're seeing here with Indike and Khan not being able to manage the pocketbook. The program will continue accepting and evaluating claims during the period of suspension, but no compensation offers will be made until after the filing deadline next month or until such time that the administrator has sufficient certainty that eligible claims can be timely and fully funded and paid, according to Feldman. You know, why doesn't Leon Black just put $100 million into the compensation fund? Go ahead and drop $100 million in there, Leon Black. Didn't you say that you were going to donate $200 million to anti-trafficking and other organizations? Well, how about $100 million directly to the compensation fund? This is me calling on Leon Black and Apollo Global to step up to the plate. Do the right thing. What's $100 million to you guys? Not a thing. Nothing. The estate has advised the program that it is working to secure additional liquidity to continue to fund the program and that it is committed to paying all eligible claims in accordance with the protocol, she said in a statement. Lip service from the estate. I don't believe a damn word that Indike, Khan, or the estate pitches us at this point. Again, I believe that they should have their power ripped from them, and I think that all decisions should be made moving forward by an independent executor named by the court. Somebody that has no ties to this at all whatsoever. Look, there's a reason Epstein named Indike and Khan, okay? According to a filing this month in probate court in St. Thomas, the value of the Epstein estate's assets stood at approximately $240 million at the end of 2020. That seems like a pretty good amount of money to throw some more in the old kitty there, huh? How about we get all of this shit sold off? Get the plane sold, get all of it sold, let's get all of this money put into the pile, and let's move on, okay? Enough with this BS. Let's get Khan and Indike out of the way, and let's get some progress here. The estate's co-executors, Darren Indike and Richard Khan, an attorney and an accountant, each worked with Epstein and his myriad of companies and nonprofits for many years. Epstein selected the pair as co-executors of his estate in a will he drafted in jail 2 days before his death. And again, with Indike and Khan, I mean, how long have we been hammering those dudes here on this podcast? How long have we been bringing them to the forefront? His longtime associates should not be the executors of his estate. I am sorry, that should have never occurred. And once it did, the state should have stepped in and stopped it. Brad Edwards, a victims' rights attorney who helped craft the program's protocols, told ABC News he found out about the suspension of compensation offers on Thursday morning. He said the estate's co-executors should have seen this coming and taken steps to avoid it. Absolutely right, sir. 100%, Brad. These people, they didn't pay attention because they don't care. They never had any intentions of abiding by the parameters of this compensation fund. And we see that play out right here in real time as we watch this story unfold. The irresponsible mismanagement that led to today's announcement was entirely preventable and indefensible. Jeffrey Epstein survivors deserve not to be re-victimized any further. Exactly what I said earlier in the podcast, and I feel the same way. This is just more re-victimization for these girls, and it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Get your shit together. All of these millions of dollars, all of these high-profile lawyers, and nobody has their shit together, huh? Nobody has a plan to force the state to get these executors out of here? We sue for everything else. You tell me there's no remedy for this, huh? Dan Weiner, an attorney representing the co-executors, told ABC News in an email statement Thursday that the estate's efforts to liquidate Epstein's assets, including private aircraft and high-end residential properties in the U.S. and abroad, had been hampered by the now nearly year-long coronavirus pandemic and its enormous adverse effect on local and global economies. I get it. It ain't easy. It's definitely not an easy market to try and flip real estate, and high-end real estate at that. But that means you have to give it a shave. You have to do what you have to do to make sure that this compensation fund is funded. And if that means you have to take a shave, well, chop it. Chop that price, get it on the market, and get it sold. The estate has also expended substantial funds in defending against multiple civil lawsuits and administrative proceedings, Weiner wrote. Here's an idea. Plead guilty to all of it, or no contest, and you won't have to worry about any of this stuff. The estate, Indike and Khan, are the problem from where I'm sitting. If they weren't there, there would be none of these other lawsuits, this administrative stuff. But yet, these two idiots are at the helm, and they're not doing the right thing, so other steps must be taken. More than 24 women filed civil lawsuits against the estate after Epstein's death. Several of those cases were voluntarily dismissed after the alleged abuse survivors accepted compensation offers from the program, and all of the remaining lawsuits have been placed on hold while the women seek resolution of claims through the program. And that's going to be a problem. I guarantee it. Mark my words, folks. You're going to see people drop out of this claims program. Remember, it's voluntary. And they're going to pursue other legal matters on their own. I'm telling you right now, there's no jury in the world that will not rule in favor of these survivors. The estate has so far funded the program with $87 million, and $55 million has been paid out to an undisclosed number of survivors, according to Weiner, who contended that the program has been operated with remarkable efficiency. Oh yeah, they're doing just a great job. This is such an efficient program that they ran out of funding. Give me a break. The co-executors continue to seek to liquidate assets of the estate in the full expectation that the program can soon fully resume its regular operations, Weiner wrote. Well, there should be a deadline put on that. Couple of weeks, whatever the lawyers can hammer out, whatever that might be, a deadline should be established. And then if no funds are made available, there should be a level of escalation that comes after that. What that is, I don't know. But there needs to be something in place, because this cannot be allowed to abide. These gals were starting to get the money. $50 million was paid out. Let's finish it off. Let's get all of these gals paid out, and let's move on to the next phase of this trial. And that is holding people like Maxwell criminally responsible as well. Edwards, who represents several dozen women who have submitted claims to the fund, called for a court to step in on an emergency basis to take control over the estate and to prohibit further injustice. See, Brad knows way better than me, right? Guy's a lawyer, and there has to be a remedy for this. There's a remedy for everything in the legal system of the United States. So there definitely has to be a lever here that can be pulled on. My problem is that the co-executors of the estate have had plenty of time to make arrangements to ensure this didn't happen, he said, but they let it happen anyway. If it wasn't intentional, then it's evidence of unprecedented irresponsibility. My clients feel victimized and are rightfully furious. And Brad, let me tell you what, the people following this case share that sentiment. It is absolutely absurd that this fund would run out of money at this point. This fund should be fully funded, and nobody should get one single dollar from this estate until all of these girls have been paid back restitution. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. All right, everybody. I hope you all enjoy your night, and I will be back tomorrow.